Well, what the policy statement really says that since the April policy meeting and now crude oil prices have already gone up by 12%. And going forward, one really, as you said, one cannot say anything about crude. It's much too volatile and depends to a large extent on geopolitics and completely outside our control. Also because of the fact that we import more than 80% of our requirement of oil. So as far as crude oil prices are concerned, there's very little that the RBI or the government can do. As far as MSPs are concerned, this is something that the government can do. But given the kind of pressure that we're seeing in the rural areas with farmer agitations and the sugar policy, the package that's been announced today, clearly government is going to find it very difficult not to succumb to the demands of the farmers. So the MSP price hike is much more likely. In fact, we've already seen price hikes for 3 commodities, and that could be a danger point as far as inflation is concerned, because remember, as far as CPI is concerned, consumer price inflation is concerned, almost 50% of the basket is contributed by food. So if MSPs rise, that has a far greater impact on inflation than perhaps crude. Crude impacts the wholesale price inflation to a much larger extent and lesser CPI. Food impacts CPI much more and lesser the WPI. Well, as far as the RBI seems to suggest, they see that crude right now is likely to be a bigger uncertainty, and the RBI's projections in fact seem to suggest that the upward impact because of crude price hikes will be softened to some extent by food prices actually coming down or inflation not being so high in the case of food. But as we've seen in the case of food in India, the balance between demand and supply is very fine. So any small disruption, floods, drought, a farmer's agitation, all these can push up food prices. As we saw just now, the farmer's agitation that is currently going on. We've already seen food prices, vegetable prices go up. So I think they've taken a very brave or bold, whatever decision that you can say, assuming that food inflation will not go up. See, as far as crude prices are concerned, government had deregulated. So if you were to go back in any way, it would mean you're turning the clock back on reform. Having said that, as I said, since we pay for our crude, we import and we import in dollars, and when crude prices are going up, there's nothing much we can do. Somebody has to pay the, bear the price somewhere. Suffer the consequences. So if you pass it on to consumers, it shows up in higher inflation immediately. If the government absorbs it, it shows up in higher fiscal deficit, and ultimately it comes back to the taxpayer. So there is no free lunch, however cliche that may sound. Question is, do you pay the price immediately, or do you somehow fudge it and do it through the fiscal deficit? There is no getting away from the fact that when crude prices go up, everybody in this country suffers.